So after doing the head, I generally like to move down to the hands, which might sound a little bit weird, but I want to get the areas that have the most important topology in place first. So the face and the hands tend to have the most important. Now, the way I start with the hands is through the fingers, and I get a nice view like this on the finger, and I just add a quad here, like so. And then what we're going to do is we're going to pull that quad into a cube, defining the front, side, and top of the finger. So that is the process there that I use for building out my base structure for the finger. And I just want to get this to fit in here as good as possible, kind of straighten things out and even them. Good practice here would be to essentially come to the knuckle line, since that's going to be where we want our main line at. And then pull this back to the next knuckle line. So we can hit tab. And if you hit tab, you can usually grab the full quad. And then hit tab again and just grab the full quad back to the base. And you're probably thinking, wow, that looks awful. That looks nothing like a finger, and you are absolutely correct. To make it more finger-like, we can control-click to add an edge loop down the center, and control-click to add an edge loop down the center. You'll see that'll give us our volume. And then we can shape this for the finger a bit. So I'm going to give one for the width of the finger, another one for sort of the base shape of the finger. And then at each knuckle, I usually like to give two, then one for the width, two for the knuckle, one for the width. So something like that, and you have your first finger in place. I generally try to avoid smoothing on these as much as possible. It tends to rotate and roll the vertices, but that is the structure for a quick finger. So let's go ahead and repeat that process. This is not easy to do. I know I make this look easy. I have done this on a lot of characters, So just be aware it may not go this smoothly for you with the fingers. Some people opt to just model fingers on. We also could have honestly just taken the fingers from our original base mesh and probably used them. I am not as simple as that. That would be a logical option. So I've drawn in that cube again, just going to hit tab and adjust my widths a bit. Hit tab again. And you'll see that time it didn't take the side with it. So I have to be careful with that. Sometimes when you hit tab, it doesn't work the way you would imagine. The way I'm actually doing this is tab and middle mouse button. I guess I should have mentioned that. If you want to extrude out a whole edge, you can actually use the middle mouse button when you use tab. Might have helped you on the first one. So just middle mouse button, tab back that. And then just like I did before, add a width to each side. And then we can come in here and add a edge loop for the tip, add an edge loop for the base. That jumped. Add two for the joint, add one for the width, two for the joint, one for the width, and then just kind of tweak these base ones. And that will get us some basic hand topology. Then we can come to the next finger and do the same thing. So just grab the finger there, tab to create a top area, tab to create a side area, tab to create a bottom area, tab to create another bottom area. And then same deal, just pull this down to the knuckle. You might want to save as you're doing this. I'm going to save just because I don't want to curse this. All right. And then tab, middle mouse button, pull back to the knuckle. Tab, middle mouse button, pull back to the knuckle. Add our widths and hope it doesn't explode on us. Looks good. One for the tip, one for the volume, two for the joint, one for the volume. Make sure it's in the middle, not wherever that was. Two for the joint, one for the volume, and then adjust the base. And you'll see it's very mechanical at the end of the day with fingers. I hate to break it to you, it's the same way with toes. And yes, we do have to do toes as well since we model them. Everything needs to be retopologized, but there you go. So same deal here with the hand. We'll just get that tab, connect this down into here, tab, and come to the top, tab, get that the volume it needs. Get those lined up okay. All right, so something like that. And then we're going to tab, middle mouse drag back to the knuckle, tab, middle mouse to the base, control click for width, and then 1 for the fingertip, 1 for the middle section, 2 for the joints, 1 for the middle section, 2 for the joints, and 1 for the middle section, and bring the joint back. All right, and that almost finishes off our fingers. We just have the thumb to go, but you can see how quickly that can be done, surprisingly, using that technique. It does seem painful, but it's not as painful as it could be. So same deal here with the thumb. I'm just going to start with a quad at the base, tab to draw over the top to the knuckle. Adjust the widths here a little bit. And with the thumb, I usually give it a little bit more volume once we get into the edge loops. But let's get this drawn back here into the hand, up into the knuckle there. All right, and I'm not going to go past that webbing. The thumb's a bit different because it forms more of the hand. But we're going to give it the width, and then here, tip. I'm going to give 1 for the nail, which is a little bit different, and then 2 here, and then 1 in the midsection. And this is what I mean about the thumb. I might do 1 extra one there just to kind of catch that ledge a little bit more and just kind of give it a stronger silhouette. But that should be good for the thumb. So now we have the challenge of tying these back together into the rest of the hand, and that is where things get a little bit challenging. Between the hands, I like to have some webbing. So what I do is I just place a vertice here and create basically a little bridge between each finger, like so. And this is going to allow you to spread your fingers. So I am connecting it to the base there, but that's base idea there. So basically, we're going to place. And you can also do this with tab, but just kind of tab, pull this out, connect, like so. And then continue this back to here. And you want to situate it on the crack there. So you really do want to get that into the center of that area as much as possible. And into there, and into there. And there we go. Now, the next part is kind of resolving these up. What do we want to do about that? That's kind of a challenge. You could theoretically do something like this, where you connect these into each other like this. This works. There's really nothing wrong with this per se. The only challenge is, what about how it goes back up here? And with that, you can kind of do this here, where you just kind of get quads going back this way. So that way you have the ability to spread them down here and move them up there. You also have something that maintains the knuckle, but you have to be careful with this because sometimes the bend on this can look a little bit funky, but that should be okay. It really varies with hands, but the main functionality you want to get is the ability for the fingers to bend, which we currently have, but we'd actually want to add an edge loop to all of these here on the base. And we also have the ability for the fingers to kind of splay and spread out. Alternatively, you could just continue them straight up as well. It just kind of varies. But we could do the same down here, just kind of doing the same sort of connection setup. And connecting those back up into there. And then as far as these goes, this is going to roll around here and connect to the side. And that's going to give us this sort of palm area. And same here. And then I'm going to spend a smidge of time here smoothing some of this just to make it a little bit more even. And add an edge loop here for the purpose of bending along the fingers. So that way we can go in every direction we need and just smooth this area out a bit here by holding Shift and cleaning that up. So something like that, we'll kind of get that in place. Okay, it should work. We need to get a bit more functionality into here. So usually it's good to have some structures kind of following the forms down here. So for example, with something like the thumb here, I might go ahead and just wrap this up and around here. And once again, topology and structure go hand in hand, but they don't need to match detail. So this will make the thumb have this radial section. From here, I can just kind of connect the thumb into the necessary edge loops. Like so. And that will give me the thumb area, and I can add another edge loop here if I need, and as many more as I need to make it so I can deform this area correctly. From there, this can pretty much just be straight for the most part, running into here. But what I usually like to do is try and connect these here and here, like that. And you'll see that is going to give me a little bit of a funky shape on the hand I have to resolve. But from here, it's a matter of just kind of tabbing and wrapping up around here and getting this. Now, something you're going to start to notice is we end up with a lot of density on the hand that we might want to resolve before it gets into the arm. We don't really need that much density in an arm, especially for something like a video game character if we're doing a lower end. So resolving the hand detail is always kind of a fun task. And we can find creative ways to do it. But as a base way of doing things, something like this works out fairly well because you end up with the topology you need for the hand to kind of bend here around this midsection. I just might want to adjust things. For example, moving this over more would be a good idea. And maybe resolving some of these sooner would be a good idea. And back up into the hand a bit more. So one area we can investigate is something like this, where we bring these around and bring this around and then bring this up. So we're getting sort of this side angle of the hand naturally. But the cool thing is, at the same time, finding a way to return some of the topology from whence it came, right? So what do I mean by that? Well, we obviously want a midsection here to get this form. But on the sides here, we can add in an edge loop, and then we can send at least two of those back up into the rest of this. I also might want to take a look at this area where it's kind of curving before I get ahead of myself and work in the palm a bit. So here we kind of have this going. We have that angling up. We might be able to do something similar here, just kind of turning this like so. And you can see that'll give us kind of a little grippy area there. And that's going to make it so now one runs this way. And as a matter of fact, we can do it like that. So now we get a little bit of a channel through here. And this gives us an opportunity here to actually connect a gap in between this area and this area. So like that. And then we can resolve these on the bottom here. You can see I can kind of roll that up and into here and into the side. So we can get something like that, get a bit more of our palm detail in here and our palm functionality without compromising. Though I might consider coming in here and compromising a bit here just because this seems like it's stretching quite a bit. Doing something a little bit different so that way we get a line down the center there. And then maybe resolving these differently in this area. I could also consider resolving them differently on the palm, which is kind of weird. This area obviously needs to come up, but nothing says we can't come across here at this stage. And even here, like that. So we might have to think about how we want this to go a little bit more. I don't think I want to do what I'm about to do there. But you can explore this area a bit more in the hand. I actually like that. And try and think of the best way to resolve things. So I want this to be able to basically fold over on here. We already have enough edge loops there. We basically have just one there that we might want to terminate, but maybe I just connect it straight down. And as far as that goes, that's kind of an interesting dilemma. I might have to try and track down where that line's coming from. So at some point there, I might need to jog that line back to make sense of it. So there we go. Just kind of elongating that. And yeah, that causes some complications. So what's the issue here? Basically, this line's kind of connecting there to there, which I do probably still want. I do like the idea of having these 2 points connected into here and here. But the dilemma was that the line there is causing an issue. So I might have to just pull some of these out here to this point and then get the line in there manually. So same sort of idea, but different execution basically. So what I would do now is connect that to there. So that gives me that wraparound, and do the same here, but then continue this across here. And basically start what will be a second row that will tie up into that area. And theoretically terminate for all eternity, and we'll never have to deal with it again. But it's a lot of just going around the hand at the end of the day. Now, once you get past the bending point, which is kind of where we're at here, you can also consider resolving these. So a way I tend to do that is going like this, and then you can come up and over on a couple of these and basically lose a ton of the edges. Same here. You can kind of do something like this if you had to resolve some of them. In this instance, what I might do is just use the middle finger there, and that will be good enough to resolve enough of these where I probably don't need to worry about doing that again. But we could also do it on another point in the hand. We could also try and do something consistent for each finger, which sometimes is the better solution. So sometimes it's better to look at like the crack area here to see, okay, well, maybe I can do something like this, where we start to take some of these angles to the side. Really just depends. It depends on how much you want to terminate it. I'm not too worried currently. I don't know if we need to do any serious resolving on this one, but if it was a game character, like I mentioned, I'd probably take some time there to think about what I want to do. As far as this goes for the moment, I just want to get the hand attached to here. So I'm just going to hit Tab and connect into here, if it'll let me. Now this is another area where I might need to think about how things are going, because I have a lot of these edges coming this way, but I don't have a lot coming from this way. So what we could do there is kind of give the hand a bit more of a side to it, which is kind of interesting. But for example, if you connect a line that way, it'll kind of naturally draw itself out. All right, so let's just kind of continue this. I'm going to continue with the wrist area. Let's see if I can't figure this out. So that's connecting up to that hand. So theoretically, that would probably be a good connection point, which because I have 1, 2, 3 going into 1, 2 here. So that's an example of where I might want to decide, hey, you know, can I resolve these in some way? And it'd be a good idea to look at maybe this thumb area where this terminates. So what I want to get this, that's one, this is one. So basically I just want to remove one of these. And, you know, I have to ask, is that possible? Can I connect these singularly into here? And usually the answer kind of reveals itself if you just kind of strip everything away. You can see here I can kind of do a turn thing, which might be a solution. There's that into the palm, that into the base, and then we have to figure out how to get one more edge. So generally when you need to create an edge, a good structure to use is to kind of have a quad, and then coming off from the quad, have two lines. That usually creates more. So we can look at how that might pan into something like this, kind of just fitting into these areas. I feel like this is defeating the purpose of having this line in the middle though, but you can see how that can feed into these areas here and allow me to get more detail potentially. I need to go down to 1 though, and I don't really want to do it across there. So we can experiment. I know this works because I've already done it. And that might be part of it. It might be partly taking from just this area here and this area here and turning it more, and then just continuing this down here. So kind of a combination of what we know works and a combination of what we don't know works. And then if I wanted to here, I could actually resolve this down, which might not be a bad idea, into a singular area and get something a little bit more conservative. I'm still kind of ending up with this situation where I don't have a crack here, though. I think I'm okay with that. If I just kind of nudge these over, that should give me a okay result. And we could do that up higher if we needed to, but I think that works out okay for this. And then that basically fixes everything going this way. So now we can tie this into here, and like I mentioned, if we want to resolve some of these coming off of the hand, we can do so, which would probably be a good idea at this stage. We know those connections are going to work. So what I will do here, let's see. I know I can take this and connect these back into here like this. That's going to remove some of those. Probably keep those for the angle of the hand still. And maybe just do it on one section rather than multiple to make it a little bit less of a headache to manage. But something like that can help resolve that top area a bit more and give us a few less points going into the wrist here. So something like that can work. There's a lot of different ways you can resolve the top and bottom of a hand, so you'll probably find other ways out there. I think I do it a different way every time, if I'm going to be honest. I'm also not quite liking how this is going here. I mean, the wraparound there is kind of needed, but I'm kind of losing the wraparound, so something tells me it would be better to just kind of ixnay this and have it go forward. So that one's going that way. So this one should go this way, and then from there, we can kind of resolve these again. All right, so I think that's going to give that a better feel. And just kind of soft select here, smooth this out into the wrist area, and then we can see how much we're working with the wrist. This is another area here that I'm not so sure about, that curve down into there. Maybe works. Usually you want to avoid pulls on the wrist like this, so it might be better to take a step back here as well and just kind of get this to terminate sooner, in which case I have to add an edge loop there, but that's probably fine. What I can do is that, and that should connect back into there. So we'll just do that. You want to avoid poles, which are multi-point edges, like what we see here. This is a pole on areas that bend, like the wrist. So we want to avoid that on the wrist area if possible. And apparently at some point I added an edge loop here, which I don't want. Hopefully that wasn't important. Let me Control Z just to make sure. Okay. I don't know why that edge loop got put there. I might have accidentally clicked. Accidentally clicking happens a lot with Quad Draw, so enjoy. I'm sure you will do it too. Now from here I can just tab to pull this out for the wrist, and that's essentially going to be my wrist right there. And we can add one more edge loop, and there you go. That's going to be our hand structure and give us the topology of the hand that we are going to be using. All right, so pretty straightforward, kind of a time-consuming process, but that is going to be the hand. The fingers are probably the most time-consuming process, but there you go. All right, so let's go ahead and save. Go ahead and get a hand set up, and then we'll go ahead and probably tackle the foot after, just for consistency's sake. All right, so let's work our way down into the toes now. I'll start by just laying down a point for the big toe, like we did for the fingers. We can hit F in face mode to frame up on this, so that way we're moving around the toe. And just like we did before, we can do the exact same thing that we did with the fingers here. Just kind of tab, pulling this back, and then giving ourselves a nice cube that ends at about the knuckle there, and then pull it back to finish the toe shape. So we're going to repeat this process with each of these toes, and in theory, it should work just like it did for the fingers. Now, feet topology is even less important than hand topology. Hand topology is very important, but feet, you can kind of knock in here quickly, simply because not a lot of characters have them, and they tend not to be seen. Now I'm going to do the same thing here. I'll give a width here for the nail, a width here for the tip, a width here for the midsection, and then 2 for the joint. And that should be good. And then we'll go back and do the same thing here. Just kind of give ourselves a quad. And then tab to pull this back into a cube. And do the same thing here. And then cap it off at the top and pull this up to the knuckle. And try and get it to match the width a little bit here. And then tab and middle mouse button to the next knuckle, tab, middle mouse to the base. Careful here that they don't connect. Control click for the width, control click for the width. And you'll see we're getting a little bit of funkiness here. We can just rearrange these vertices to give us a better look there. And get rid of the funkiness. And then same deal here. I'll do 1 for the nail, 1 for the tip. Might smooth this a little bit. And then 2 for the joint. 1 for the midsection. 2 for the joint. And then 1 for the midsection. And there we go. Come to the next toe and repeat the process. Just tracing this box around. Middle mouse drag to the joint. Middle mouse drag to the joint. And middle mouse drag to the joint. And the feet, toes kind of curl here, so that's what's happening on this backside. Make sure that your top doesn't get curled. Midsection, midsection, nail location, tip, 2 on the knuckle. And watch out for this. You can see some of these are getting unwelded. I don't know how that happened, but we'll get that in there. And you want to check that for the whole area. If one's off and you use tab, that means they all are, which is both a blessing and a curse. If you get ahead of yourself, it's a curse. If you catch it early, it's a blessing. Okay, but same deal, just 2 on the knuckle. And same here. I'm trying to think where the knuckles are on the toes. There's only 2 knuckles on the toes, so here as well. And then 1 for the base. And we'll repeat. So pull that back, Do the same thing here and here. And just repeat the process slowly and surely. Match the knuckle, tab to pull back, and tab to pull back. And remember to check that top side, because on the toes, they like to sink down. Control click, give 1 to the nail, 1 to the tip. Come in here and do a better job on the base. 1 for each side of the joint, and then 1 for the width. And just to be consistent, 1 for the width. We probably don't need the 1 for the width down here anymore, but it's better to be consistent as you're going through this. Let's go ahead and do the last toe here. Same process. Do the same thing here and here. You'll see I didn't use tab here. That was my brain malfunctioning. I should have just tab middle mouse drag. But you can see it's something you can do without it. I know sometimes when I do things systematically, students think they have to do it that way. You don't. All right, so same deal. 1 for the nail, 1 for the tip, 1 for the ledge here, 1 for the ledge here, and 1 for the ledge here, and then 1 for the base. We can add 1 for the width there. It seems kind of weird to do that on the pinky toe, but I'll do it. Now, we can resolve these a similar way we did to the hand. You'll see my toes don't really have enough space here. If you really wanted to, you don't necessarily need the gaps because you can't flay your toes. Kind of a weird thing. I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it, though. So it's one of those things where I am going to come in here and, despite these being very skinny, get that in there for the sake of functionality, because it will serve a purpose at some point. And since we're creating a base mesh, it'd be nice to have something generalized that we can edit if we need to. All right, and then coming into the side here, let me rearrange this so it is more correctly placed. And move this up. And do the same thing here. And here. So get something kind of like that going. And just repeat the process for each of these. Now, for these really close ones, just do your best with it and give yourself breathing room if you need it, is my advice. So what I would do here is get the functionality in here by just kind of dragging these into place and then nudging the existing topology to be in a different spot. So something a bit like that could work. And do the same thing here. And connect those into there. And to make sure they're connected, you can press 3 to smooth preview, and you should see those curve. With tight areas like that, that's always worth checking. And it's going to be sort of the same situation here. I'll just move those to make the room for it. And do the same thing here. And here. So connect that into there, and press 3 to check it, and there we go. That should be good. And then from here, it's a matter of just kind of pulling things up and, yeah, resolving the foot. With this one in particular, I might take a slightly different approach with the toes because we don't need quite as much articulation, but let's go ahead and lay these flat here, like so. And then we can explore resolving these a bit earlier than we did the hand. So we don't want a whole bunch of unnecessary detail going up to the foot. And I generally would be prone to use triangles here, especially since most what I do is game characters. But sticking with quads, you know, can be a good idea too. So what I would do is above these knuckles, I would look at how we could kind of redirect this area on a per toe basis. So, you know, what can we do about this? How many things can we change? One thing we could do is if we draw a line here around these, we can essentially redirect these holes into here. But it's not going to be on a per foot basis, which is kind of weird because we'd have to do one over here, which we could do. The downside to this is we kind of end up with a lot of poles if we do it this way. So you kind of have to pick your poison. The feet don't really have a whole lot of motion to them, so if we end up with a lot of poles, it's not really that big of a deal. But this will allow us to terminate all the toe cracks, and then we're just dealing with the areas running up the foot. But we're also doing so in a consistent way, and I think that's one of the hard things to kind of stick to when you're doing the hands and the feet, is finding a consistent way of doing things. But consistency is pretty crucial, I would say, just to make sure everything's deforming correctly. We could have done something similar on the hands as well, but I usually try and avoid poles on the hands more because the hands do deform a lot more than the feet. So a pole is going to be more noticeable. But something like that, you know, running across there on the toes should work okay. And if we smooth these out, should actually give us a pretty appealing area. It can also give you essentially a knuckle. And this might be something I reconsider, you know, on the hands going up and doing again. There are a dozen different ways to do hands, and when you look them up, you'll find all sorts of ways. The main thing is you want your fingers set up a certain way. You want your palm set up so it can kind of fold and bend. And then you don't want to have endless geometry going up into the arm. So, yeah. I tend to do hands differently than what I demonstrated here. Like I mentioned, I'm trying to get sort of a generalized setup. When doing the stuff I do a lot of game art, so there's much more triangles involved for terminating things, and it actually makes things a bit easier, if I'm going to be honest. But something like that terminates those nicely into the side there, and then we can kind of continue these down here. Do the same thing here. And do something similar on the bottom, I would say. Probably the exact same thing would be a good idea. So on the bottom here, same sort of structure I had. Let's just pull these out with tab and try and remember what I was doing. And for the bottom one, I'd probably focus on doing this for this front ledge that the feet have. So that's where this would be a little bit different. And give it a turn point here on the side of the foot. So I'm just going to repeat this process here quickly. Okay, so that will kind of resolve that area. And then we can come across here and resolve the toe area pretty quickly and finish off our foot, and we can talk about the idea of shoe topology with the upper area. So as you can see, toes very similar to fingers. I may even want to revisit my fingers and use the approach I used for the toes. I don't know why, but I feel like I had more clarity there, and that resolution's a lot nicer. So I might actually try something like that up there in the hands. Never hurts to revisit somewhere. So let's go ahead and save here, and I'm going to talk a bit about the idea behind a shoe. When you have the foot area, you basically have a heel just like you would a shoe. And the way that goes is if we go ahead and put down a base back here, it's going to come out like a circle. So something like that. And we can hit tab and just kind of pull this forward. And that is going to be what is going to be the bottom of our foot. And you can probably already see how that's going to go. These areas can kind of connect back. I do want to make sure I have enough areas going into the back of the leg, so I'm going to give 2 here just to give this the roundness, and probably another one here. But for now, we'll just leave it like that. Then for the ankle area, you end up with a round area going around here. And I'm going to keep this very broad. Remember, we can always add edge loops as we go. So that's going to be this area here. And then we're going to start to get some different angles here coming down. So what ends up happening is you end up with an area that kind of goes around the foot here. And I'll make this nice and big. Like so. And an area that wraps around the ankle. And a point where they converge up. So this is sort of the base idea here behind any sort of shoe or foot. Usually the side angles about where they go up, like so. And I could actually start to just connect these into each other. You can see having this super big and blocky and broad like this, it works. You just need some more edges to round out the forms and make it look pretty. But at the end of the day, this is pretty much what we're dealing with. Now, one of the challenging things is kind of figuring out the sides of the feet. These are going to continue down the sides, and then we'll have a center point here, and these will go up, and that will curve up. And then getting over to this side, I'm trying to figure out what I'm missing here. There we go. That is a shoe. So you can see that gives us that shoe topology. We can then come in here and start connecting some of these things, like these heels here. Here on the back side. We can give ourselves more edge loops down the sides here to really give us as many as we need going into the leg, which is a nice control system. And I just want to make sure they align with the poles that they are respective to. And then this will just kind of come and form the side of the foot. And this is the same topology structure that you use for any sort of shoe, any sort of foot. Doesn't really matter. It's going to have the same sort of structure. What differs with the foot that has toes is that it has toes. So we have to kind of resolve all of these into here. Now, one of the nice things is a heel is a heel. So this round area just kind of goes around and comes in. And you can see you can connect as many of these as you need into here. So I've gone ahead and connected a couple. So we could, in theory, continue this down. I could also create sort of a redirect on these on top of this all, which is probably a good safety net. So kind of pick our side areas there. And then in the center here, you can see how I have sort of the indent, divot, arch of the foot. We can hide a redirector like this into this area. So that way I can catch a few more of these going into here, basically. And we can just connect that back and connect some lines into here. But this will give me the ability to add a couple extra edge loops maybe where I need them, just to kind of resolve and get this situated. And I can do the same on the top of the foot, kind of on that flat area, just add its own sort of resolving point. Main thing is to connect those. But up here, there's no reason why this chunk here can't turn into this exact same shape where we just pull this down and have the ability to feed as many edge loops as we need into here. And you can see how convenient this is. It's kind of funny, you know, I feel feet are a lot easier than hands. I think it's just because you don't care as much approaching them, and the thumb is kind of confusing when it comes to the hands. So here I can add a lot of edge loops around the foot area. I'm going to add at least 2, and I can smooth this out a bit just to get a better read on the form. Make sure I'm not overdoing or underdoing anything here. But that's already kind of going to get us connected into there and resolve a lot of these. And yeah, let's just kind of get to it. So I'll make this center one pretty narrow here, and I should be able to add maybe 2 or so ledges here. One downside to how I've set this up, and this was a bit oversight on my part, is I'm probably going to want more than just these edges running into here, right? So let's get those first. That's probably a good amount on the front there. Now I can resolve these. I'm just going to smooth them out. Shift. If you want to be super precise and you want to just do this once and not have to worry about adding edge loops, removing edge loops, trying to figure out who needs to connect where, which one we need to go to a terminating loop, my suggestion is to do some quick counting of what's important and where things need to go. So what I'll do is count these edges. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So it looks like we have 24 on this side. And then we can count the other side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. So we can actually remove like 4 edge loops on the side, which is great. Good to know. We just have to figure out from where. That's the hard part. So I wasn't expecting that. All right, so there's 2. So we can remove those 2. And we need to remove 2 more, essentially, which would likely come from down here. Now, unfortunately, I used the redirection to kind of redirect these down. So, yeah, it might have to come from one of these side ones, but I feel like the side ones are more needed than those ones. So, interesting. We need to remove 2 more. Where are those going to be? I think on the bottom here, figuring out how to resolve one of these might be a good idea. We're kind of redirecting a whole bunch into here. And it could be that we just don't need to redirect any of these. Let me think. Actually, yeah, that's creating new ones there and there. So I think we just need to remove our redirection on the bottom of the foot, surprisingly, and keep our redirection on the top of the foot. And that will give us what we need for connections. So now, in theory, I have 24 down there, and I have 24 up here. I should be able to just connect back into these areas and hopefully have everything hook up all fine with no issues. I am noticing I am getting sort of this effect here where it's kind of falling over. So I might want to start somewhere that makes sense, like the sides here, and try and connect those. I also have to make sure I have enough on top and bottom. That's one of the challenges. So one thing that can be good is to kind of match up with things as much as you can. So for example, if I start by matching there to there, and maybe start on the bottom of the foot, it will make more sense. I feel like the bottom of the foot just works better because the density seems more straightforward. But you can see how we run into this issue where it's like, okay, well, we had 24, but the problem is we need a whole bunch of them down here. So now I need to start kind of pulling these down to here and just kind of connecting this area better. But that's okay. I think that worked out okay. And I'm going to start working on the other side a little bit here because I'm not sure if I'm bad at math or not, or if we're supposed to start pulling these from a different area. And it looks like a lot of these ones on the side, I need to start pulling this way. to make this work. And just kind of patiently nudge these over. And yeah, there we go. You've connected them all together. So now what I'm going to do is add some edge loops around the circular areas that we've created and call it a foot. So around those areas, we could go ahead and play around with this. And there we go. We have our foot topology done. You can see it's very self-contained. So we have minimal coming from the toes up into the legs, which is exactly what we want to see. And just real clean boot topology there, kind of what we're going for. All right, so that is the feet. Let's go ahead and save. Go ahead and get your feet in there, and we'll go ahead and continue forward. I might revisit the hand real quick. We'll see, but go ahead and give the feet a shot and get those in there. So I really liked how the feet turned out, and I'm just curious if we could do the same thing on the hands. So what I'm going to do is revisit the hands here, and basically it's this area that I need to pull out and kind of rework in terms of how I did the feet down there. So if you take a look at the feet, the way I resolved these is I connected them across, but then I went up. So I connected them across, went up, and then resolved up here. On the hands, I didn't do the resolution here. So I'm curious if I could get away with this. Just kind of deleting out this area and revisiting this to see if we can get less edge loops and kind of a cleaner hand out of it or not. There's a good chance we can't, but it's a chance that I'm interested in taking just for the sake of getting something a little bit cleaner than what I have currently in this area. So you can always rework topology, moral of the story. So what was the lesson I learned down here? Basically, we're going to draw above the finger and kind of pull down. So the idea, I'm actually starting to wonder why that works so well down here. Do I have more topology? So you're connecting across the base. Okay, so that's it right there. I need to make a slight change here to this. These are the bad connection areas that I'm not liking. I let these areas have more detail on the toes and form knuckles. And I think I want to do the same for the hands here. And form knuckles instead of whatever it was I formed here. So let's just redo this area and see how it goes and see if we get a little bit cleaner topology out of it. Okay, so the way I did this is I kind of ignored all this and just pulled this up a bit more. And then for each of these, I decided to come up and make a knuckle shape and then bring those down into the side areas here and then up and onto the knuckle itself, so that way we get a knuckle per finger. And I think that'll actually be really nice on the fingers because we will have knuckle shapes instead of what the other topology was going to give us, which was actually just going to be kind of a vague form of pinching. But I like this idea here with these forming a knuckle row and then terminating later. So ultimately this may be worse. We'll see. But I'm pretty sure this is going to work out nicely just from how things are looking. Makes a bit more sense to extend this out this way into a knuckle formation. And just kind of rinse and repeat here. You'll start to see a lot of common patterns in topology. There's only so many ways to direct an edge, so it's something to kind of think about as you progress in your career as a 3D artist. You start to see these patterns over and over and over again. It's like, oh, that kind of works. You know, let's reuse that for the next one. Or that really didn't work. Let's never do that again. That could be what's happening here as well. And the thing about topology is you only have a vague idea of how well it's going to work until you actually build the rig and see it moving. So that is one of the challenges when it comes to topology. So just kind of be aware of that. That's why I say who knows how good this actually is. I mean, here's kind of a good example. Do I do that? It's like, no. I think we'll go ahead and let that one go forward. But then you run into that issue where it's like, okay, well, is that going to cause an issue? It might. We could, however, change it up here to where it resolves itself like that. And I actually kind of like that on the side there. And that'll actually be nice for the thumb, because I think it'll give the thumb area the correct setup when I get to the thumb side. So we'll connect this across, connect this down, and as you move through your career, you'll find better ways of doing things as well. I can guarantee you, 10 years from now, I'll probably look back at this video and cringe. Maybe not, though. If I'm honest, like, every time I retopologize something, it's kind of new. I don't have, like, a magical system for anything. Every character kind of has its own different set of challenges, and when you're working in video games like I have been, it's even more of the Wild West, because you deal with tri-count, and a lot of the times you just bare minimum see if you can even get it to work, and then go from there. All right, so this is the area with the thumb that I said, hey, this is probably going to help the thumb with. So we'll bring that down and midsection, and there we go. And that looks really clean, and I actually really like that. So yeah, I think that was a successful alteration there. I'm just going to hit tab here and pull these out to get a nice area here. And yeah, that looks good. That looks a lot cleaner than what I had originally. As far as the palm goes too, you can kind of think of these as running in this angle here. If you look at the lines of the palm, that's pretty much where they're going to go. So we can kind of fill this in here and just kind of slap an edge loop across this. And then connect this up and see how it connects into everything else. I might have to rework several other areas in the hand. I might not have to rework anything. But a nice fold line there isn't going to hurt anyone. Smooth out the knuckle lines a little bit better. And actually looks like these are going to connect in kind of nicely. I might take this and flatten this area a bit. See if I can't get a one-to-one connection going across on these here. And it's okay if I don't. I might actually add some edge loops just to make our life a little bit easier. And I'll have to do as much back and forth here in terms of deleting and whatnot. Just stick to this more straightforward setup on the hands and be happy with it, because it looks cleaner anyway. So this is an area that gets to be a bit of a challenge, because it's like, well, what do I want to do here? We have this kind of turning up here and that going that way. In theory, I could add another line down here that runs to this. I don't know if that hurts. No, I can't. I don't really want to have more topology going back up into here. And no matter what, I end up having to go that way, which is kind of interesting. So that might be one of those areas that I have to revisit and ask myself, how am I going to tackle this if I do go this route with these nice looking knuckles? And I think the answer comes in with this area here. So basically doing something like this, where we curve this in by the thumb and bring this up more here. And voila, just like that, we connect into the hand again. And we get a little nicer angle going into the thumb that has a bit of a curve, and we get those nice knuckles. Now, I can also resolve this at the top of the hand if I want to have less edges running up here into the arm. And I might. I feel like the bottom density feels a little bit better than the top. I could also do it with the bottom as well. So just to kind of demonstrate that redirection technique, you'd come in here to the broad area of the hand, delete out a good portion of this. So look for areas that are not necessary. I would say here to probably around here are pretty unnecessary. So just like that. Quad draw, and then remove these to make room for this feature. And just do this, and there we go. We get a big old redirector, and this allows us to kind of control the loops in the hand now. Main thing is I want it to have the same connections across, since I took the time to add those. But you can see how you can kind of surgically come in here and just kind of remove an area and rework it, and no issues, right? So it's just like, okay, now we're reworking this. You know, we're going to determine how many we want down the center, maybe 3. And then we can figure out how many we need to go into here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So yeah, that cuts it back a little bit. But what I then do is kind of connect these in, rearrange them like so. And there we go. So that will resolve a few more of those in the hands a lot more cleanly and nicely. Beautiful looking topology, a lot better than what we had first. And we can do something similar here. It's a little bit trickier, but we could, in theory, put one like back here-ish. It's a little bit weird because some of the structures we have don't really like it. Something like that. I'll move these really quick. Kind of going into here. We can still keep that, still keep that, still keep that, keep that, keep that. And there you go. That'd be an example there of reducing that down further, kind of getting that little furrow there between the hand and that other area to be more well seen. So that kind of works. I don't know if I fully like it on the bottom there, but it looks pretty good. So now if we go ahead and take a look at the smoothing here on the hand, you can see getting better topology structures and forms overall. Okay, so we've gotten through the worst part of topology here, the hands, the feet, the heads. Let's save, and then we can talk about the torso and limbs.